Yu is a ugly and poor child who suffered early bullying from his parents for being the Seraph of the end. His dad resented him for bringing a demon to life, and the abuse escalated over the years. One day, his dad was prepared to harm him, but Yu managed to escape, finding himself outside. There, he encountered the lifeless bodies of his friends. Despite his father's betrayal and the backstabbing, Yu survived and ran away. The only refuge he found was an orphanage in the ghetto, where Mika tried to befriend him. However, Yu, scarred by past abuse, revealed his mother had traveled to Nirvana because he was the worst child. Nevertheless, Mika extended a helping hand, offering to be his new family. Although Yu briefly enjoyed his time with them, a lethal virus took the lives of everyone aged 13 or older, and Truck Kun embarked on a mission. As vampires invaded the city, Yu and his newfound family attempted to navigate the streets. Eventually, they reached their orphanage only to find their caretaker had passed away. Surrounded by vampires on all sides, Voldemort seized them and transported them on a truck to be raised as livestock. For 4 years, they endured life on a farm, where their blood was harvested. Yu grew weary of this miserable existence, destined to become someone's food. When he screamed out against it, he witnessed vampires callously stepping on 2 little kids. Driven to intervene, Yu rushed forward to make them apologize. However, the vampires responded by picking him up. Even as Mika tried to apologize on his behalf, the vampire threatened to throw Yu off a cliff while aiming to stab his heart. Just then, Lord Farid appeared from the stairs, and his lackey threw Cairo on the ground. Mika had always been Farid's favorite child, and when he invited Mika to his mansion to suck his blood, Mika agreed and stopped Yu from screaming at him. That evening, Yu saw them all eating curry, which was rare since they usually only ate insects. Knowing Mika sacrificed a lot of his blood to feed them, the girl told them to thank Mika when he comes back. So, Yu stayed up all night waiting for him. When Mika eventually returned, Cairo wondered what he sacrificed for their food, saying he would offer his blood next time. But Mika tell him that no one wants to drink the blood of ugly lonely loser. Mika disclosed his true motive for going to the mansion, revealing the gun he obtained from Farid's place and a map for their escape from the farm. Agreeing with Mika's plan, they decided to say goodbye to this world. Mika instructed everyone to wake up, and throughout the night, they sneaked around the farm for hours, traversing the entire city and hiding in the alleys to avoid guards. Voldemort, with a keen sense of smell, tried to spot them, but they managed to hide under the sewer. Eventually, they reached the exit, but Lord Farid appeared, shocking them. He had been luring them out to play his game and deliberately planted the map to give them hope before leaving them in despair. In front of their eyes, he began sucking the blood out of one of the girls but discarded her lifeless body. Yu's anger intensified, leading him to fire his weapon, but Farid disappeared behind him. Farid then revealed that, since they were clever, he would share the truth. The exit behind him could lead them to freedom, but they had to get through him first. Yu shot his gun to buy them some time to run, but Farid swiftly passed him, grabbed one of the kids, and swiftly ended her. In front of their eyes, Farid began eliminating every single one of them, with Acne being the last one left. He struck her down. Mika reminded him never to forget that they were family. Grabbing the gun, he rushed towards Farid. As he dodged the first attack, he slashed through Mika's chest, knocking his weapon away. However, Yu ran with the gun and shot Farid in the head, eliminating him instantly. Seeing the only person who gave him hope in his life about to pass away, Yu promised to carry him out of there. However, Mika begged him not to let their deaths go in vain and pushed him away, screaming at him to run. Yu cried while running through the hall and screamed at the top of his lungs. As he kept running, he slipped down some snow and saw the outside world again. 3 men were expecting him, stating prophecies that he would be their weapon of destruction against the vampires. Instead of saying anything, Yu hugged the man, promising to eliminate every vampire even if it meant giving up his own life. After a few years, Yu had become a vampire hunter. While patrolling the deserted streets, 2 hunters suddenly appeared before him, narrowly dodging a monster's attack. When they advised Yu to run away, he insisted that his destiny was to eliminate monsters and vampires. Drawing his sword, he charged towards the monster, slashing through its claws and dodging another attack. Yu sliced the monster apart, eliminating it instantly. However, the following day, Yu was sentenced to attend school time for violating the Hunter's Department regulations by attacking the monster on his own. When the teacher threatened to suspend him for not paying attention in class, Yu expressed that he would gladly suspend himself. After all, his only desire was to hunt and slay vampires, and a school suspension would give him all the time he desires. However, a girl named Shinoa tapped him and introduced herself. She revealed that she was an army surveillance officer assigned to monitor his movements. Confused, Yu listened as she threatened to call for an extended suspension if he didn't pay attention in class. Once he relaxed, she informed him that his suspension would only end after he made a new friend. 4 years ago, after Yu escaped from the ancient vampire city and encountered the three strangers, the leader introduced himself as Guren. He explained that he was the head of the demon army, tasked with hunting and eliminating vampires across the earth. Guren mentioned that there were few survivors left and invited Yu to join his army, promising to train him in annihilating vampires. Back in the present, Yu recalled that Guren had abandoned him since he joined the army and refused to enlist him in the hunt for vampires. When the class ended, Shinoa suggested he make new friends to have his suspension cancelled. However, he tell her to piss off, calling himself a Lone Ranger. Despite her attempts to persuade him, he grabbed her and asked her to convince Guren on his behalf to be enlisted in the vampire extermination unit. She showed him a note from Guren, stating that he would only be accepted into the unit after making a new friend. Angered by the words, he tossed the paper aside and left the class. Inside the locker room, as Yu was set to leave, he noticed a boy named Yuuichi being bullied by a guy named Yamanaka. Hoping to help, Yu confronted the bullies and told them to leave. However, when Shinoa warned him that attacking them would lead to further suspension, the bullies took advantage of the situation and knocked him out. That afternoon, while returning from school, Yu asked Yuuichi why he was being beaten up. Yuuichi explained that he had asked Yamanaka for a spot in the demon army after failing his entrance exam. Yu considered Yamanaka to be the greatest and most useless loser in the world, questioning how he managed to get a spot when he himself was not welcomed. Realizing Yuuichi is also pathetic, Yu wondered if he was eager to get eaten by vampires. However, Yuuichi explained that he sought revenge for his sister, who was killed by a vampire before his eyes. Despite still thinking of him as a useless loser, Yu decided to leave. As he was leaving, an explosion rocked a nearby building, and a system alerted the students that a vampire had escaped from the facility. Seeing this as his chance for glory, Yu told Yuuichi and Shinoa that he would end the vampire and immediately hurried off. After forcing his way through the crowd, Yu hurried up the building and retrieved his weapons from his locker. Inside a classroom, he found a vampire ready to harm a girl and discovered that Yamanaka was scared. Determined to slay the vampire, he drew his sword and charged towards her. However, she dodged his slash, and after a spin, she lunged towards him. Yu dodged and was kicked aside before evading her punch and flipping across the room. As she dodged another slash, he swiftly sliced her arm off, but she immediately snatched it back. Realizing the girl was still alive, Yu told Yamanaka to take her to a safe place, but the loser was too afraid to do anything. The vampire reattached her arm and grabbed an iron bar, threatening to drain all the tomato sauce from Yu's body. As she began striking him, he skillfully blocked her attacks, but she jumped over him and noticed that his sword had nicked her. After healing, she sprinted towards him, narrowly missing his face, but he managed to slash off her plot armor. As she jumped back, Yu started firing his gun, but she evaded the bullets and began healing again. She warned him that he would be toast once she drained the tomato sauce from the girl. Before that, Yuuichi tackled her to the ground. However, when she attempted to harm him, Yu blocked her claws, but she seized his neck and began pushing him out. They fell through the window and down the trees. When the vampire realized that Yu had impaled her, she claimed to be immortal and said she couldn't be killed. Fortunately, Guren stabbed her with his special sword, and she vanished before their eyes. Shocked, Yu learned from Guren that vampires could only be slain with a special demon weapon or a powerful spell. Guren thanked him for defending the students before his arrival. However, Yu was solely interested in joining Guren's team and demanded an open slot. Guren explained that the rules remained unchanged, and Yu would only be accepted if he made new friends. At that moment, Yuuichi appeared, delighted to see Yu alive. However, as he stumbled, he accidentally bumped into Yu, knocking him unconscious. Shinoa informed Guren that Yuuichi was Yu's new friend and reminded him of his promise to allow Yu to join the team. The following day, at the hospital, Shinoa informed Yuuichi that he had been accepted into the Moon Demon Army, having fulfilled the requirements. She mentioned that Yuuichi would be allowed to tag along. A few days later, the girl Yu had rescued from the vampire thanked him for his help and gave him a letter. Before he could open it, she vanished into the building. When Shinoa appeared before him, he hid the letter away from her. Shinoa wondered if Yu was a virgin and asked if he understood the process of plot development. However, Yu was solely focused on eliminating vampires and questioned why he still had to attend school after securing a spot in the Moon Demon Army. Shinoa admitted she had no answer to his question but informed him that his training for the extermination unit had begun. She showed him a strange key from which a powerful demon emerged. Shinoa revealed she had made a contract with the demon, and as she vanquished it, she unveiled her weapon. She explained that she was a member of the vampire extermination unit, and the scythe was her equalizer in battles against vampires. However, Yu saw this as his opportunity to hunt vampires and threatened to take Shinoa's weapon. She informed him that it was impossible to use it as it was already assigned to her. Undeterred, Yu, determined to fight, charged towards her. However, she effortlessly blocked all his attacks with her own and sent him sliding back. The two continued fighting, with Yu narrowly dodging her blade before slashing through the stones. After evading another slash, Shinoa unleashed a demon from her side, and it lunged at Yu, slamming him into the fence, causing him to lose all his strength. As Yu and Shinoa headed to their next class, Yuichi hurried towards them, with the stupid bullies following him. When Yu asked if they intended to beat him up again, Yamanaka claimed they were going to apologize for their previous actions and hoped to become his new delivery boy. However, Yu thought they were insincere and questioned why they wanted to serve him since he considered himself too useless. Yamanaka explained that they needed Yuichi's help to rescue the third member of their group, who had entered the Forbidden Chamber and never returned. Shinoa interjected, informing them that the Forbidden Chamber was a restricted area, and if they were discovered near it, they would be executed by the army. A few hours later, Yu asked Shinoa about the Forbidden Chamber. She explained that it was a secret room used by the army to train new members of the vampire extermination unit. Upon arriving at the Forbidden Chamber, she clarified that only recognized members of the unit were allowed inside, as anyone else risked being possessed by a demon. When Yuichi wondered how they could rescue the missing bully, Shinoa expressed hopelessness, suggesting that he might have been possessed by a demon that would attack everyone in sight. However, Yu was determined to find out for himself and expressed his desire to obtain the power of the demon for revenge against the vampires. After stating his intentions, he ran down the steps, jumped to the ground, and charged with his sword. The bully blocked his strike, pushed him off, and narrowly avoided a slash. As Yu attempted another attack, Shinoa restrained him with her scythe. She warned him that the axe was possessed by a demon and would take control over his mind if he touched it. Despite Yu's determination to take the weapon, Shinoa pointed out that his heart was weak, and the demon would exploit his desire for revenge. Refusing to back down, Yu threw his sword and charged towards the bully. As he dodged the axe's slash, he kicked the bully off and caught the weapon. Suddenly, he found himself back in his former life, with friends inviting him to dinner. Confused, Yu wondered what was going on. His friend Mika asked him when he intended to start eliminating vampires, given his vow for revenge. Yu, thinking he was in a crazy dream, was held by Mika, who promised to grant him powers for revenge. Darkness began to overwhelm them, but Yu dispelled the shadows, insisting that he would not succumb to the demon's control. The house began to crumble, and Mika transformed into a demon. The shadows engulfed the room, and when Yu woke up, Shinoa informed him that he was lucky to be alive, as she had feared he would remain unconscious forever. With the demon defeated, Yu wondered if he could claim the axe for himself. However, Shinoa informed him that only Guren could assign him a weapon, due to Yu's proven abilities in resisting the demon's control. Shinoa allowed him to start his training inside the Forbidden Chamber. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a monster was wreaking havoc in a damaged city. Surviving humans ran to safety. Mika, now a vampire, approached the monster. Magical ropes bound his hand as he slashed it with his sword, killing it instantly. With the humans safe, another group of vampires appeared and began preaching the same scam, offering protection in exchange for their tomato sauce. When a little girl approached Mika and offered him her own sauce as gratitude for saving her, Mika hesitated. As he looked at her, memories of his own past flooded back. A few years ago, after Yu had escaped from Lord Ferret's castle, vampires had arrived at the scene. When one of them tried to harm, Queen Krull appeared and declared her desire to claim him for herself. Accusing Ferret of allowing Yu to escape, she threatened to destroy his empire. However, with Mika close to passing out, she decided to turn him into one of her own. She kissed him with her sauce, transforming him into a vampire. The following day at school, a random guy bumped into Yu and punched his face, criticizing him for looking ugly and disgusting.
Emotional damage!
However, that evening, when Yuichi asked him if he was hit by a bus, Yu jokingly replied that he had rammed his face into a telegraph pole. When they came across Shinoa, she asked if he had gotten into another fight, but Yu claimed that he was bitten by a mosquito.
What?
Shinoa then led them to their new training space. When they arrived at the training space, they found a few students inside, and Guren was introduced as their teacher. During Guren's introduction, he called Yuuichi brain dead and labeled Yu as a coward who couldn't even kill a cockroach. Determined to redeem himself, Yu proclaimed that he was the greatest fighter in the world and expressed no concern for the students' faces. He called them losers and suggested they run home to their mommies. However, Guren punched Yu for his arrogant speech and directed him to a seat. Yu discovered that his seat had been taken, and as he threatened to beat up the person who occupied it, they realized they had bumped into each other earlier. The situation escalated into a brawl as Yu and the other person began trading punches, but Guren intervened by kicking them into the door. The next day, a new instructor informed the students that they had to pair up for a test to prove their ability as a team. Shinoa paired up with Yuuichi, while Yu decided to partner with Kamizuki. With no other students left, they bound themselves together. As puppet monsters began to emerge, Shinoa and Yuuichi successfully dodged an attack. Yu, thinking the puppets would be easy to destroy, agreed with Kamizuki's suggestion to eliminate them immediately. However, as they ran off, Yu and Kamizuki bumped into each other and realized they were still bound. When the puppets attempted to attack again, they suddenly froze up. The instructor then announced that Kamizuki's sister was sick at the hospital, but Kamizuki said it was a waste of time and wanted to keep training. Yu thought he was crazy and told him to stop training right away. Even when Yu insisted, Kamizuki didn't give up. Yu stepped in and hit some sense into him, telling him to take care of his sister because she was his only family. That evening at the hospital, the doctor informed Kamizuki that his sister was fortunate to be alive, as the virus had started to affect her. Kamizuki believed she would survive and vowed to take her to a better hospital after joining the Moon Demon Army. Later that night, Kamizuki began to express doubts to Yu about making it into the Moon Demon Army. In response, Yu encouraged him to have faith and assured him that they would work things out together. Determined to make it into the Demon Army, they decided to make peace with each other. The following night, as Guren emerged from a meeting, Yu attempted to kick him. However, Guren caught his leg and pushed him away. When Yu demanded his own special weapon to hunt vampires, Guren finally agreed to give him a contract. Excited by the news, Yu promised to slay all the vampires, but Guren knocked him down for his prior attack. Arriving at a facility, Yu encountered Shinoa, who informed him that Guren had indeed approved his desire for a demon weapon. Skeptical, Yu thought they might be tricking him. Shinoa reassured him that Guren always keeps his promises. The following day in class, the instructor started announcing the exam results, explaining that the scores would determine the students' ranks and their eligibility for a special weapon. When Yu discovered that he had failed, he attempted to hide his result, but Shinoa snatched it away. In an attempt to retrieve it, Yu chased her across the class. Eventually, he found it with a group of students who learned about his failure. He quickly snatched it back and warned Shinoa to stay away from his business, asserting that he only needed a sword to become a great hero. As Yu started arguing with Kamizuki over his score, Guren entered the class upon spotting him. Yu demanded the promised weapon, but Kamizuki pushed him away and insisted on his own. Guren believed they couldn't control the demon and suggested working on their anger issues. However, Yu and Kamizuki continued arguing and silenced each other with a punch. When Guren asked about students able to resist the demon's temptation, the instructor mentioned that Yuuichi was proving to be the best among them. To see for himself, Guren drew his sword, and thick shadows surrounded him. Stabbing the floor, the shadows spread across the class and walls, causing students to pass out. Despite this, Yuuichi remained unfazed. Guren returned his sword, and the shadows vanished instantly, leaving only Yu and Kamizuki standing. Guren informed them that they would be allowed to form a contract with a demon. As they headed down the steps, the instructor expressed doubt about Yuichi's ability to tame a demon. But Guren, considering Yuuichi useless anyway, asserted that taming a demon was his best hope of surviving. As they arrived in the underground, Guren informed them that the most powerful weapons in the world were hidden in this chamber, and each weapon had its own demon. He explained that the demons could take over their bodies if they couldn't defeat them, instantly ending their lives. Eager to prove himself, Yu pulled out a sword, and the light began to glow around him as the demon appeared before his eyes. The demon claimed the ability to control his mind and manipulate his perception. Unfazed, Yu rejected her influence and demanded control over her powers. When asked why he desired it, he revealed his intention to avenge Mika's death, trying to use his desire against him. The demon urged him to surrender for total control over his mind. As she vanished, his friends surrounded him, accusing him of abandoning them. They pressured him to surrender to the demon, promising unimaginable powers. You saw through their deception, demanding the demon's powers to protect his friends. Suddenly, you found himself back in the spirit world, and the demon, Asurumaru, appeared before him. She expressed liking him and offered to give him her powers as long as he stayed determined to slay vampires. However, she warned that she would take control over his body if he ever became unwilling to kill a vampire. Seeing this as exactly what he desired, you agreed to the terms. Asurumaru introduced herself and instructed him to call upon her whenever he needed her powers. With the completion of their contract, you woke up in the real world. Upon bragging about defeating the demon, he discovered that Kimazuki had dispatched his own demon before him. However, Yuuichi remained lying unconscious. In his dream, a demon in the guise of his sister told him he was too weak to control her powers. When Yuuichi said he wanted to avenge her death, she called him foolish and refused to give him control. She then thrust her hand into his heart, promising to take revenge for him. Yuuichi woke up as a gust of wind shattered a statue nearby. Guren informed Yu and Kimazuki that Yuuichi couldn't control his demon, and they needed to eliminate him. Yuuichi shot an arrow at them, but Guren remained unharmed. Yuuichi jumped to another statue and continued his attack. As the dust cleared, dodged an arrow, and Yuuichi relentlessly attacked. Kimazuki unsheathed his blades, and Yu readied his sword for a counterattack. As they sprinted ahead, Yu suddenly appeared behind Yuuichi, ready to strike him down. They clashed swords, and Yuuichi hoped breaking the connection would free him from the demon. However, Guren revealed the demon was inside Yuichi's body. Seizing the distraction, Yuuichi swiftly pulled Yu down. When Kimazuki tried to finish him, Yu pleaded for Yuichi's life, suggesting another way to help him regain control. Yu shouted at Yuichi, urging him to take charge, but Yuichi, confident, aimed his arrow. Yu threw his sword away, and Shinoa and Kimazuki rushed to protect him. Yuichi fired the arrow, missing and regaining his senses. He ran toward Yu, but Guren kicked him, scolding Yu for discarding his weapon and calling Yuichi useless. When Yu woke up, Guren advised him to forget his past friends and consider Kimazuki and Yuichi as his new family. Guren announced they would be assigned to the front line of the war, as vampires were close to breaching a nearby city. The following day on a train, Yu asked Shinoa why she always seemed to be following him like a crazy, obsessed stalker. She explained that she was his guide and had been assigned to watch over him. Yu, thinking she was too clueless to understand her own words, expressed eagerness to start slaying vampires. Upon arrival, they entered a facility and discovered a wrecked city before them. When they spotted Guren and a girl below, they hurried down to find Yuichi and Kimazuki waiting. The girl, Matsuba, was screaming at Guren for making Shinoa the leader of their team, believing she was more deserving of the role. After spotting Shinoa, Matsuba's anger intensified, and she ran towards her. However, when Shinoa called her a grumpy, useless little child, Matsuba's anger surged again, and she summoned her blade, ready to destroy her. Shinoa summoned her side, and as they clashed weapons, Guren intervened, slashing their blades away. He held them both, warning that he would throw them into solitary confinement if they continued to act like worthless children. In response, they apologized and promised to be on their best behavior. After a few minutes, Guren informed them that he was heading in a different direction and introduced Matsuba to the team as their new comrade. He explained that the demon army always scouted vampire territories with a team of 5 soldiers to protect the group. Emphasizing the importance of teamwork for survival in battles, he urged them to fight as a cohesive unit. However, Yu believed he didn't need anyone's support and declared he would attack the first vampire he encountered. When Matsuba attempted to kick him, he caught her foot, questioning if she had lost her mind. She clarified that she was testing his reflexes to ensure he wasn't a sorry loser. Guren then revealed their mission, to discover a vampire settlement and rescue humans serving as their dinner. The team set out, but upon reaching the vampire territory, Matsuba began to warn about monsters and vampires. She screamed for the team to stay alert to avoid being squashed by the enemies. As they ventured deep into the vampire territory, a little girl started running from a monster. When Yu attempted to rescue her, Matsuba stopped him, warning that it was a trap set by the vampires. However, when the monster knocked the girl aside, Yu thought Matsuba had lost her mind and angrily told the team to forget it. Matsuba caught him, emphasizing that his interference could endanger the team. As the girl reached a cliff and the monster tried to push her off, Yu, frustrated, told Matsuba to forget herself and ran away. She pursued him in an attempt to stop him. As the monster pushed the girl toward the edge, the situation escalated. The bus vanished, and the monster attempted to harm her. Yu intervened, slashing its claws and blocking another strike. After urging the girl to run, Mitsuba flew towards the monster, slicing off its claws before their eyes. 3 vampires approached, and Mitsuba informed you that the vampires always use the human as bait before attacking the army, advising him to stay away from them. Like Flash, one vampire struck Yu's sword and continued attacking him, joined by another. He managed to ward them off, but not before getting sliced across the face. As they charged again, Yu summoned a Siramaru and unleashed thick fumes from his sword, with mysterious marks appearing across his body. When the monster rushed towards him, Kimizuki jumped in, delivering double slashes. Yuichi launched arrows at its tail, and as Mitsuba leaped high, she ended it with her blade. Upon realizing that they were from the extermination unit, the vampires decided to call for backup. However, Yu cast a powerful slash, determined to prevent them from leaving. Shinoa intervened, urging him to retreat as they had gone too deep into vampire territory. Reluctantly, Yu agreed, and they watched as the vampires vanished. When they returned to the facility, Mitsuba began to scream at Yu for putting everyone's lives in danger. Yu apologized for leaving the team but expressed no regret for rescuing the girl. The girl appeared before him and thanked him for saving her. Mitsuba reassured the girl not to be afraid, stating that the army would protect her. The next day, the girl informed them that the vampire settlement was inside an old train station. After a few hours, the team set out. As they approached their destination, Mitsuba cautioned them that they should retreat if outnumbered by the vampires. However, Yu found her plan questionable and declared that he would rather fight until his last breath. As they arrived at the station, Mitsuba cautioned the team to be wary of vampire attacks and told Yu to stop acting foolish. Inside the station, they discovered several frail and sick-looking children who had lost a significant amount of body juice. As they ventured down a tunnel, searching for the vampires, Kimizuki wondered why the teenagers wouldn't escape when the vampires were away. Mitsuba explained that they were afraid of being eaten by the monsters outside, as the vampires had promised to keep them safe. When they reached an abandoned floor, they spotted a vampire walking across. Mitsuba summoned her weapon and instructed the team to annihilate him. Yu charged forward, wielding his sword, and stabbed the vampire with a powerful strike. As he pulled his blade back, the vampire vanished instantly. Angered by his reckless action, Mitsuba screamed at him and attempted to smack him. However, he held her hand and explained that he waited for her command before leaving his position. Mitsuba, stunned, watched as he suddenly pulled her away and blocked the sword of a new vampire before kicking him back. As they began charging towards each other, Yu swiftly cut down the vampire with a single slash. Before long, the team arrived in another part of the station and witnessed more vampires appearing before them, weapons drawn. The team braced themselves for the vampire's assault, but 3 others broke through the glass and seized Mitsuba before she managed to escape. When Mitsuba realized they had been given false information about the vampires, the leader of the group explained that they had threatened to harm the girl's family if she revealed the truth. With the team greatly outnumbered, Mitsuba urged them to run away. However, Yu insisted that he was determined to fight until his last breath. As Yu rushed forward, he clashed swords with a vampire, while Yoichi's arrow impaled the second one. Kimizuki battled another, and Yu engaged yet another vampire, enduring slashes. Blocking a sword, he kicked the vampire and ran towards the leader, splitting him with a single strike and rescuing Mitsuba. With the team gathered together, they prepared for another round of battle. That evening, they successfully rescued all the children and brought them to a new camp. When the girl spotted Yu, she hurried to him and apologized for tricking the team. However, he reassured her not to feel sad, acknowledging that she had done the right thing by choosing to protect her family. After waving her off, Mitsuba appeared behind him, attempting to thank him for saving her, but she arrogantly walked away. The next day, Kimizuki attempted to hotwire a car, and when he finished, Yu expressed his desire for a test drive. However, Kimizuki told him to scram since he couldn't drive a car. Later, at breakfast with the rest of the team, Yu took the wheel and accidentally drove into a light pole, causing it to fall with a loud noise. A few hours later, they began driving to the next facility. As they got closer, a terrible noise echoed across the city. Mitsuba warned the team that it was coming from their destination and cautioned them to be cautious of enemy attacks. Approaching their destination, they spotted a vampire ahead. Upon discovering that he was a high-ranked vampire, Yu instructed Kimizuki to mow him down. However, as they jumped out of the vehicle, the vampire stopped it and hurled it toward them, causing it to explode into pieces. Yuichi launched arrows at the vampire, but he skillfully slashed them off and unleashed a powerful wind that was parried by Shinoa. She instructed the team to stay in position as the vampire swiftly moved behind her, ready to strike. However, Yu intervened, smacking his sword away, and the vampire jumped back. Recognizing their opportunity, the team prepared to confront him. However, 2 new vampires descended from the sky, leading to suggest running away. Shinoa dismissed the idea, stating that they would be eliminated immediately. She emphasized that their best chance was to fight with all their strength and hope they wouldn't all be slain. One of the ladies informed the lead vampire that Lord Farid was awaiting him at the front line. He sheathed his sword and warned the team that he would end them the next time they crossed paths. As a hand smacked Yu on the back, he realized the vampire was already behind him. However, swiftly moved away, relieved by the outcome. Shinoa fell to her knees, grateful that they were still alive. However, Yu became angry, feeling that the vampire was merely toying with them. He had hoped for equal abilities with them and thought it was unfair that the high-ranked vampires were much stronger. Shinoa advised him to learn magical curses if he desired to be equal with them, but emphasized that he wouldn't need the support of the team, which could expose them to attacks. She told him that he was important to the team and expressed gratitude for him saving her life. Meanwhile, inside the facility, several soldiers launched arrows at helicopters, causing them to explode and crash. As they continued firing arrows, the helicopters attempted to dodge, but they were impaled and exploded mid-air. Just when the soldiers believed they had won the round, a plane flew towards the facility, crashing inside and causing the walls to crumble. With this opening, 2 vampires emerged, proud of their success, and several vampires hurried into the facility. Simultaneously, on the east side, the team arrived and discovered that the facility was under attack. An aircraft launched a missile at them, prompting them to jump to the ground and hide behind a wall. As another aircraft began firing at them, they hurried away and sought cover behind another wall. Several vampires descended from the aircraft, and as the soldiers attacked, the team charged out with their weapons. Mitsuba, wielding her blade, jumped high and cut down 2 vampires, while Yu blocked and slashed like Zoro. Shinoa also slashed at a vampire, and when an aircraft began firing at her, she blocked it and instructed Yuuichi to destroy it. As Yuuichi attempted to launch an arrow, a vampire jumped before him, but Shinoa swiftly sliced him down. Yuuichi then fired his arrow, causing the helicopter to explode. Meanwhile, Yu and Kimizuki rushed forward, slicing through more vampires with their swords. As the battle concluded, the corporal appeared before them and expressed gratitude for their support. As they began walking through the camp, the corporal informed them that the west side of the facility had been breached and requested their assistance in joining the rest of the forces to fend off the vampires. Meanwhile, on the east side, Guren observed vampires draining the eliminated soldiers. He spotted Mika and Lord Farid together, but a lady appeared behind him and urged him to join the war. As she spoke, a vampire charged toward her, but a girl named Mido intervened, punching the vampire back and causing him to vanish with a single blow. Mido, a high-ranked member of the Demon Army, was among those who arrived. Guren instructed them to eliminate Lord Farid before he entered the facility. Simultaneously, Lord Farid asked Mika if he would annihilate Yu when they encountered each other on the battlefield. Ignoring the question, Mika jumped to the ground and began to leave. 4 years ago, when Mika was first turned into a vampire, he had refused to drink from any human to avoid completing his transition. When Queen Crowley told him that he would die within a few days, Mika expressed a preference for death over living as a monster. However, Crowley decided to slice herself and allowed her blood to flow into a cup. When she offered it to him, he initially threw it away. However, as she began to leave, he caught her hand and began to drink her blood. In the present, while the team was heading to their new destination, Shinoa told the boys that they had no chance of surviving the front lines of the war against high-ranked vampires. When Kimizuki wondered if there was a way to enhance their abilities, Shinoa showed them some performance-enhancing pills, explaining that they would help them utilize the full abilities of their demons. Yu asked if the pills would make him as powerful as the high-ranked vampires. Shinoa informed him that 1 pill would double his strength, while 2 pills would triple it. Shocked by her words, Yu wondered how powerful he would be if he took 10 pills. Shinoa cautioned him that his organs would spill out like chewing gum, and even 2 pills could cause severe shock. Mitsuba added that the pills could only power them for 15 minutes, and once the effects wore off, they would be vulnerable to the vampires. When Shinoa gave them the pills, Yu questioned why she hadn't provided them earlier when they encountered the high-ranked vampire. Shinoa explained that the pills would only become active after 10 seconds, and using them earlier would have resulted in immediate defeat. Suddenly, a missile hit the ground, causing the truck to lose balance and sending the team flying out. As a helicopter circled, the team ran from relentless shots. However, Yu realized that the corporal was unconscious, so he hurried to pull him out with Shinoa's support. As the aircraft fired more shots, Mitsuba and Kimizuki blocked them with their weapons, and Yuuichi fired an arrow at the helicopter. The aircraft launched missiles, leading to an explosion that erupted the ground, causing the team to fall into an underground area. In the underground space, Yu and Shinoa looked around and discovered they had fallen into an abandoned subway. Shinoa informed Yu that there was an army base nearby, suggesting they take the corporal there for treatment. However, when they realized that the other half of the team was on the other side of the rubble, Yu told them to head for the defense line while they took the corporal to a safe facility. Yu carried the corporal on his back, and they began heading down the tunnel on the east side. On the east side, Guren and Mika encountered each other, and as Guren readied himself for a fight, Lord Farid appeared behind Mika with an army of vampires. Guren summoned his own army for support and began drawing power from his sword. Simultaneously, Yu and Shinoa arrived at the army base to admit the corporal for treatment. As they began to leave, Shinoa informed Yu that Guren was awaiting them at the east side of the district to aid in holding off the vampires. She suggested that they reunite with the rest of the team before heading to the east side. At that moment, they encountered a soldier reporting to his superior that the vampires were wreaking havoc in a nearby district, and were close to breaking through the defense line. When Yu realized that only his friends were fighting off the vampires in that district, he informed the superior that he would handle the situation. As he began to leave, Shinoa told him they had run out of time and would be better off supporting Guren in his district. However, Yu ignored her and continued walking away. Before long, he started running, and Shinoa followed him. Meanwhile, at the district, Mitsuba cut down a vampire, and Yuuichi launched an arrow at another. When one tried sneaking up on Yuuichi, he jumped away, and Kimizuki blocked the vampire's blade before impaling its heart. Realizing they were outnumbered, they braced for the vampire's attack. As Kimizuki clashed swords with one, another attempted to strike him down. Fortunately, Yu protected him, and Shinoa cut down the vampire with a slash. With the vampires eliminated, Yu wondered where the rest of the vampire army was hiding. Kimizuki informed him that they had slain them all. When asked why they had appeared at the district instead of the defense line, he explained that he had come to rescue them after learning they were in trouble. On the east side, Guren swung his sword, dispatching the vampires before him, while both groups clashed in battle. When a vampire charged at Guren, he skillfully blocked the sword and backed into Yuri. Recognizing the bleak odds, Yuri suggested that Guren eliminate Lord Farid to tip the scales in their favor. Simultaneously, Lord Farid instructed Mika to take down Guren. As Guren charged towards them, Mika stepped forward, ready for the challenge. He summoned the power of his sword, creating another intense battleground. Guren and Mika clashed swords before jumping away in a flash. Guren cast a spell on Mika's head, commanding it to explode. Yet, when the dust settled, Mika landed on the ground unharmed. But the demon army tricked him into a trap, and following Guren's orders, Yuri tried to catch Mika with her strings. However, he jumped away to avoid it. Mado then used a powerful smoke attack, but Mika dodged it and landed safely. To his surprise, Guren was behind him, attempting to attack. Lord Farid blocked his blade and punched him, sending him flying through a bunch of rebels before stopping. Farid suggested getting rid of Guren, but Mika said he didn't need help and wanted to handle the battle by himself. On the other side, Guren realized he had only a few seconds left before losing the effects of the pill. When he attempted to take another, Mado warned him that it could be fatal. However, Guren believed they were all destined to die and hoped to take some high-ranking vampires with him. As Mika flashed towards him, vowing to end him, they leaped away from each other. Shortly after, Mika lunged again, pushing Guren towards the rubble and preparing to defeat him. However, Yu and the team appeared in the distance, running towards them. At Shinoa's command, each member of the team swallowed a pill, hoping to rescue Guren and retreat from the battle. As Mika impaled Guren, Yu rushed towards him. However, upon realizing that he was Yu, Mika froze up in shock, allowing Yu to stab him deep into the heart. Staring at each other in astonishment, Guren instructed Yu to activate the curse on his sword and eliminate Mika. However, Yu was too shaken up to do so. Guren attempted to attack Mika, but he agilely jumped high and rolled over the ground. Yu, still stuttering for words, was urged by Guren to activate the curse. However, when Guren began coughing from his injuries, Yu tried to help him, only to be pushed aside. Guren screamed at him to wake up from his dreams. When the team met Yu, Mitsuba questioned why he had failed to eliminate the vampire. Yu explained that the vampire was his friend, Mika, whom he believed was long dead. As Yu and Mika approached each other, Lord Farid told Mika that the humans were manipulating Yu in an attempt to save him. Mika, determined to take Yu away from the district, grew angry when Farid threatened to turn Yu into a vampire. Mika held Farid, warning him that he would eliminate him if he tried. Farid accepted the threat and vowed to eliminate Yu's team instead. Magical ropes bound Mika's hands as power surged through his sword. A new vampire, Crowley, began approaching them. The team recognized him as the high-ranking vampire they had encountered earlier, and fear immediately gripped them. Realizing they couldn't defeat these formidable opponents, Guren screamed for the team to retreat immediately. Yu, however, was reluctant to leave Mika behind. The team managed to persuade him, and they started running away. Farid, however, ran before them and stood in their way, declaring they were not allowed to leave. When he swooped in behind Yu, drawing his sword, he began attacking recklessly, driven by a desire to avenge the death of his friends. Guren quickly joined him, and as Farid kept moving back, Guren charged at him. However, Farid avoided his attack and suddenly appeared behind him, kicking him into a pole. Meanwhile, as Mido attempted to run to Guren's rescue, another vampire kicked Yuri aside and swiftly moved in, casting a gust of wind and slashing her face. At the same time, the team engaged in a fierce battle with more vampires. Yuichi managed to end one with a precise arrow, narrowly dodging the second. When he froze up in fear while trying to aim again, Kimizuki intervened, pushing him aside and blocking the vampire's blade before cutting him down. As Farid held Guren against the wall, Yu charged to the rescue, but he almost accidentally injured Guren with his own sword. Farid appears behind him, ready to drink his sauce. However, Mika intervened, severing Farid's arm with a swift slash. Farid retreated, catching his severed arm. Mika began approaching Yu. In fear, Yu sat down, and Mika urged him to run away. Yu questioned why Mika was associating with the vampire who had killed their friends. Ignoring the question, Mika picked up Yu like his girlfriend and flew away from the scene. As Yu jumped off, he demanded to know why Mika had joined forces with the vampire. However, Mika believed humans were too dangerous and evil. He told Yu to stay away from them forever and, as he continued jumping away, pushed claiming his freedom. When Mika approached Yu again, he warned him that humans intended to destroy the world and offered to take him to a safe place. However, Yu turned down the offer, emphasizing the importance of his team. Simultaneously, Crowley was on the verge of attacking Shinoa, but as Yu attempted to save her, Mika restrained him. Mika insisted that Yu must abandon his team. In a distressing turn of events, the vampires restrained all of Yu's friends. Despite Yu breaking free and attempting to run off, Mika caught him once again. Mika asserted that humans were merely using Yu for his ability. At that moment, Yu helplessly watched as the vampires began to drain the life essence from his friends. Desperate to stop them, he flipped Mika to the floor. Realizing he was too late, Yu started screaming, as if in terrible pain, as his eye dripped with tomato sauce. In his spirit world, he pondered if Asurumaru was attempting to take control of his body. However, she clarified that there was a monster inside him trying to unleash its power. They gazed at the unfamiliar sky where mysterious trumpets echoed, and angels appeared. Asurumaru warned Yu that the monster within him was on the verge of being unleashed. Instantly, a powerful darkness shot out of Yu's back, stretching forth like a mighty tree branch. While Yu screamed in pain, Mika attempted to talk him back to his senses. However, Yu unleashed a powerful slash that destroyed the roof and obliterated everything in its sight. Crowley decided to approach Yu cautiously, but narrowly dodged a mighty blast that carved a large hole into the ground. Perplexed by Yu's newfound power, Crowley managed to block his sword and crashed far off into a building. As he landed, Yu tackled Crowley, dragging him through the ground before evading his sword. The two engaged in a fierce sword fight, with Yu slashing towards Crowley, causing a mountain of darkness to rise to the sky and destroy the ground. When Shinoa woke up, she found a massive hole carved into the ground from the destruction. Yu appeared, walking towards Shinoa like a relentless zombie. In an attempt to defend herself, she summoned her weapon, but Yu smacked it away as he chased her, determined to end her existence. To everyone's shock, Mika took the blow in Shinoa's place. Guren screamed for Shinoa to call Mika back to his senses. Shinoa ran towards him, holding him tightly, urging him to remember his identity. In the midst of Yu's maniacal screams, he released Mika and attempted to attack Shinoa. However, the darkness returned into him, and he passed out, his mind seemingly restored. Simultaneously, Guren informed Farid that Yu was nothing more than a distraction from their true assault. In the distance, a soldier aimed a gun at the vampires and fired. Suddenly, three monstrous entities emerged from the flames and crashed into the ground. Farid, believing they were in the clear, was taken by surprise as an army materialized before them. The leader of the army, identifying themselves as the Hiragi family, declared their intention to capture all the vampires. A few days later, Shinoa entered a secret facility. A security guard informed her that she wasn't permitted in the restricted area, and instructed her to leave immediately. When she mentioned being from the extermination unit, the security explained that only superior officers could access the area. Curious about the facility's purpose, another security guard explained that it was a lab used for experimenting on vampires. Shinoa insisted on seeing for herself. To prove her credentials, Shinoa showed them her crest, revealing her affiliation with the Hiragi family. Finally, they allowed her into the facility. As she navigated through the facility, Shinoa stumbled upon a grim scene. Vampires locked up in cells. Upon reaching a massive lab, she observed scientists conducting peculiar experiments with vampire blood. Realizing that these experiments may have played a role in sparking the war. Eventually, Shinoa entered Guren's office and expressed concern about Yu, who had remained unconscious since the recent battle. Guren, however, dismissed Yu as a mere lab rat meant for exterminating vampires. He conveyed that since Yu was no longer useful, his survival was not a priority. Guren revealed that the effects of the pills Shinoa had given Yu would wear off in a week and instructed her to leave immediately. Later that day, as Shinoa sat beside Yu's bed, she hoped for his swift recovery. In the recent battle, Farid had instructed Mika to retreat with the group, but Mika refused, insisting on not leaving without Yu. However, after discovering Yu unconscious and under Shinoa's care, Farid restrained Mika and informed him that Queen Krull awaited him at the castle in the vampire world. Mika found himself inside a detoxification system. While dressing, he paid no attention to the other vampires nearby. One vampire questioned why Yu had turned into a monster. Another vampire explained that the Hiragi family had used forbidden magic on him, unknowingly risking world destruction. He mentioned the war's goal was to destroy the pill-creating machine, but he wasn't sure if they could achieve it. Disregarding them, Mika started to leave. The vampire found him mysterious and questioned his identity. Mika dismissed his past as irrelevant, revealing himself as another ugly vampire with a bleak future, recalling the shocked expression on Yu's face. Meanwhile, Yu finally woke up, and Yuichi was overjoyed to see him alive again. He quickly called the others, and Shinoa appeared in the doorway, expressing relief at Yu's recovery. Yu mentioned having no memories of the war's outcome, and Shinoa informed him that a new army had arrived, successfully eliminating several vampires. Concerned about Shinoa's well-being, Yu checked a wound on her, wondering if she might turn into a vampire. Mitsuba walked into the room, and upon seeing Yu and Shinoa in close proximity, she misinterpreted the situation, thinking they were about to kiss. Startled, Shinoa fell from her seat, prompting Yu to clarify that he was merely checking Shinoa's health status. Shortly after the team gathered, Yu expressed gratitude to them for saving him and was relieved to see everyone alive. As they left, Yu stared out the window, hoping to encounter Mika again. A few weeks later, while reading in a library, Shinoa approached him and glanced through his book. When she realized he intended to turn Mika into a human, she returned the book but questioned his motives. Ignoring her attempts to persuade him, Yu received a summons to the headquarters through a speaker. Shinoa informed him that the Hiragi family awaited him, and as he left, he discovered that Shinoa was also a member of the family. Feeling like a fool for not realizing it sooner, Shinoa warned Yu about the Hiragi family, describing them as a peculiar group of psychopaths and advising him to be cautious around them. As Yu left the facility, he encountered Guren, who warned him that the Hiragi family would attempt to recruit him but advised him to decline their offer. Upon arriving at the Hiragi facility, he met Mitsuba, who was leaving after being summoned for questioning. Mitsuba shared that she had been promoted for her efforts in battling vampires but felt undeserving of the promotion. Yu reassured her and expressed that she deserved the recognition for her hard work. As Yu prepared to leave, Mitsuba warned him that the Hiragi family might view him as a spy and described them as a group of eccentric individuals who would likely force a confession out of him. After a few minutes, Yu entered a hall. As the door mysteriously closed, a spotlight revealed a vampire in front of him, craving his blood. The vampire leaped at him, but Yu skillfully bounced off a pole, slicing the vampire with a single swift move, completely destroying him. Soon, Yu noticed the Hiragi family standing there. Kirito, the leader, explained that the vampire was a test to gauge Yu's loyalty. Failing would have labeled him an enemy. To further test loyalty, Kirito challenged Yu to a duel, cautioning him not to activate his blade's curse, thinking it would be an easy fight. Yu agreed, promising to win. However, Kirito unleashed the power of his own sword, causing the floor to shatter and Yu to be thrown against the wall. Kirito criticized Yu as the most useless soldier, expressing disbelief in his victory against the vampires. Enraged, Yu attempted to attack, but another soldier intervened. Kirito then instructed his brother Shinya to challenge Yu to another duel, impressed by his bravery. As Yu prepared, Shinya summoned his weapon and attacked. but nothing happened, leaving you confused. A beast appeared, but you quickly defeated it. When Shinya almost got him, you struck his gun, only to be knocked to the floor, defeated. Shinya criticized him as useless and questioned why Guren hadn't trained him with his special weapon. Curious about the tests, you asked Shinya, who revealed they were trying to find a spy in the facility. In a new room, you found Kimazuku and Yuuichi captured, making him angry. He demanded their release, but Kirito insisted it would only happen if you admitted the truth. He mentioned his past was a secret but questioned how his team got their special weapons. As you struggled for an answer, Kirito ordered a soldier to torture Kimazuki and Yuuichi. Desperate to save them, you tried to explain. Kirito pressed on, questioning Yu's association with Guren and why he carried a powerful family name. You explained he got his name from an orphanage, and Guren had rescued him after escaping the vampire world. Kirito revealed the orphanage had used him as a lab rat, experimenting on orphans. You looked clueless. Kirito added that Guren aimed to unleash his hidden abilities and wanted him to join his army. Unimpressed, you thought Kirito was a fool and demanded the release of Kimazuki and Yuuichi. As they were freed, both collapsed from exhaustion. Soon, they exited the facility, with you providing support for Yuuichi as Mitsuba approached. She questioned if they were hit by a bus, but before he could respond, you noticed Guren. Hastily, he ran to Guren, asking why he was treated like a pawn. Guren explained that he had uncovered Yu's hidden abilities and wanted to explore them. You pledged to continue being his plaything if Guren helped rescue Mika from the vampires and taught him how to wield his special sword. Meanwhile, in the vampire world, Mika grappled with an intense thirst for blood. Lord Ferret appeared, grabbing a little boy and urging Mika to drink his blood to end the suffering. Disturbed, Mika pleaded for the boy's release, but when Ferret left, Mika fell to the side, still in agony. A few weeks later, in the city, Shinoa informed Yu and Kimazuki that to unlock their full abilities, they needed to cut themselves with their weapons and summon their demons to consume their blood. Just then, Yuuichi warned them of approaching monsters. As he drew his bow, a dark spirit emerged behind him, dispersing his arrow in the air to eliminate all the monsters. Astonished, Kimazuki and Yu questioned how Yuuichi unleashed such power. Yuuichi revealed he had developed a unique bond with his demon. Desperate to unlock his own abilities, Yu drew his sword and cut himself, summoning his demon. His eyes changed, and the team prepared for battle, but Yu unexpectedly passed out on the ground. Realizing he would be unconscious for hours, Shinoa suggested hiding him until he woke up. However, Yu started screaming, and they restrained him in hopes he would confront his demon within his spirit world. Inside Yu's spirit world, he encountered his father, who sought to end him for being too powerful. Fearing for his life, Yu tried to escape but found his friends slain before him. In shock, his father stabbed him from behind, accusing him of causing his friends' deaths. As Yu woke up in another world, he declared to Asurumaru that he wouldn't let her take control of his body. In an attempt to defeat him, she rushed at him, but he threw his sword, expressing no desire to fight her. Shocked, Yu told Asurumaru he aimed to rescue Mika and promised to be her friend in exchange for her powers. In that moment, Yu looked up in the real world and informed the team that he had fully acquired his demon's abilities. By the following night, Kimazuki began screaming as he confronted his own demon within his spirit world. He attempted to slay his demon, but she blocked his blade, berating him as a useless weakling. Catching another sword, she impaled his heart. Despite the dire situation, Kimazuki was determined to defeat her, grabbing his own blade and ultimately slaying her with a powerful slash. As he woke up in the real world, Kimazuki unexpectedly struck Yu with his sword, causing the team to react and jump away. However, Kimazuki clarified that he had only intended to test Yu's abilities. Standing before him, he challenged Yu to a duel. Eager to prove himself, Yu summoned the power of his sword, causing several others to appear behind him with a flaming aura. As he charged forward, the swords launched, but Kimazuki skillfully blocked them. In retaliation, a car exploded, prompting Kimazuki to unleash his own abilities and summon the Devil's Coffin. Anticipating the danger, Yu swiftly retreated, recognizing the potential threat from the demon within. The next day, the boys gathered at the girls' dorm for breakfast, only to find that the girls had burned the omelet. Stepping up, Kimazuki took charge and expertly prepared a new omelet like a pro. While having breakfast, she expressed concern that Guren might lead them into a war with the Hiragi family, convinced he had dubious intentions. The team was shocked by her words, prompting thoughts about abandoning Guren or continuing as his puppets. In the afternoon, on the roof, Yu sought to apologize to Shinoa for attacking her during the battle. Although he had no memories of the event, he expressed the hope that she would stay by his side forever. Later that evening, Yu informed the team that he was willing to stay with Guren, acknowledging Guren's rescue years ago as a debt he needed to repay. However, he remained determined to find Mika and uncover the hidden secrets of the vampire world. Realizing Yu's resolute decision, the team chose to support him and agreed to stay with Guren. Meanwhile, in the vampire world, Mika burst into Queen Crowley's palace, desperate and ravaged by hunger. Grabbing her, he began to feed on her blood. But when he was done, he pushed her away, shocked by his own actions. Despite the confusion, he questioned her about why the vampire lords intended to capture Yu. Unmoved, Queen Crowley dismissed it as none of Mika's concern. Enraged, Mika attempted to strike her, but she effortlessly caught his hand. She asserted that he was merely her puppet, subject to destruction at her whim. Informing him of an impending vampire war against humans, she commanded Mika to rescue Yu before the conflict began. Faced with little choice, Mika reluctantly agreed to keep Yu safe. After a few days, the team embarked on a journey to a new facility and encountered hungry monsters eager to make them breakfast. Kimazuki skillfully maneuvered through them, while Mitsuba summoned her weapon, unleashing a blast that split the monster in front of her. Yuichi swiftly took down 2 other monsters. With more monsters ahead, Yu charged forward, slaying both in his path. As he jumped towards the vehicle, Kimazuki swerved to the other side, causing Yu to land on the ground. The girls waved him off as they drove away. After a few hours, they resumed their travels to the facility. Upon arrival, they discovered they were already late. Attempting to sneak in unnoticed, Guren spotted them and berated them as a bunch of useless morons. Yu stepped forward, taking responsibility for the delay. When Guren asked if he would quit the army as punishment, Yu instead expressed his willingness to join the war against the vampires. Guren addressed the soldiers, outlining their mission to eliminate all high-ranking vampires in the city for the upcoming war. Despite acknowledging the mission's impossibility, he was prepared to consider them sacrificial pawns. Once the soldiers dispersed, Shinoa approached Yu to express her gratitude for taking the blame. But he humorously dismissed it, enjoying being the useless scapegoat. Suddenly, Shiger appeared and summoned Yu to the old facility. There, Yu found Guren and a few soldiers. Questioning why he was summoned, Guren praised Yu for taking the blame and deemed him deserving of a reward. He summoned Mido, creating an unsettling atmosphere that caused Yu to scream. The team rushed into the facility, finding Yu struggling over a flame. Shinoa attempted to slash the rope, but Yu vanished, revealing it to be an illusion. Confused by Guren's deception, Shinoa questioned him. Guren explained that it was her punishment for not taking responsibility for the team's fault. He warned that in the upcoming fierce war, making the wrong decision could cost her the entire team. Unfazed, Shinoa asserted her leadership abilities and confidence in protecting her team. Guren, seeking to test their abilities, challenged the team to a battle in the hope that they could prove themselves to him. Before long, Shinoa began suggesting a plan to defeat Guren, noting that he could only be outdone in hand-to-hand combat. All 3 of them descended from above, ready for battle. Shinya summoned his weapon, firing as a monster emerged from the flames. The monster deftly dodged Yoichi's arrows, crashing through the hall and nearly overwhelming the team. With their initial plans foiled, Shinoa ordered a retreat. Mitsuba created a diversion with a flame, but Guren effortlessly destroyed it with his sword. As they ran, Shinya blasted 2 monsters towards them, but Yoichi managed to destroy them. Guren, closing in on Kimazuki and Yu, clashed swords with them, displaying quick and graceful moves. Simultaneously, Shinoa and Mitsuba engaged Mado, swinging and cutting with their blades. Guren countered with a mighty wind that blasted the team out of the facility, as Yu landed on a car, narrowly avoiding a powerful strike that split the car in half. In the ongoing battle, Guren attached an explosive spell to Yu's head, threatening to blow up his skull. In a desperate move, Yu ran towards Guren, hoping they would both be caught in the explosion. However, Shinya intervened, firing a blast that Yu managed to vanquish. Unfortunately, as the blast blew in his face, Guren knocked Mitsuba unconscious and disarmed Shinoa, mocking the team as an ugly group of losers with no chance against high-ranking vampires. Meanwhile, in a distant town, Mika observed as a new group of children was led into aircrafts. Despite resisting his thirst, a vampire advised him to accept his nature and indulge in as much blood as he desired. Mika rejected the offer, but when out of sight, he staggered from exhaustion. Seeking relief, he started drinking some of Crowley's reserve blood, discarding it when it failed to quench his thirst. Witnessing the vampires leading the last set of kids towards the aircraft, Mika realized it was his final chance to taste their blood. Desperate, he flew towards a girl and pressed her to the ground, ready to devour her. However, as he regained his senses, the kids immediately ran off in fear. By the next day, Iwasaki started explaining the plan to eliminate a high-ranking vampire. The target would be at the usual park, and the team needed to ambush him before he rejoined the other high-ranking vampires, concerned that you might jeopardize their mission. Narumi's team criticized him, labeling him a useless deadweight with no place in the battle. Despite the doubts, Shinoa was determined to redeem her team and assured them they would succeed. Meanwhile, Shinya and Yuuichi waited on a tower to support Shinoa's team in eliminating the vampires. When Yuuichi seemed uneasy, Shinya encouraged him to have faith in himself and to stop seeing himself as a hopeless failure. Taking a deep breath, Yuuichi managed to relax and prepared himself by drawing his bow, awaiting the right moment. Eventually, they spotted the noble vampire several miles away, patiently waiting for their opportune moment. Inside the park, as the vampire enjoyed his special cocktail, he sensed the threat and used his butler as a shield against the incoming blasts. After the dust cleared, he remained unscathed and retaliated by slashing a powerful force towards the tower, splitting it in half instantly. Simultaneously, the squad began running towards the vampire. Yu volunteered to take on the vampire, offering to test his total strength. As two vampires approached him, Yuichi's arrows consumed them and several others, allowing Yu to face off with the noble vampire. Charging with his sword, Yu found the vampire evading with ease, blocking his attacks and hurling him back while dodging a blade. Shinoa attempted to strike the vampire, but he caught her side. Iwasaki flew in to attack, and the vampire tossed Shinoa towards him, but Yu intervened, preventing a potential disaster. As the vampire sneaked up behind Yu, Shinoa conjured fiery creatures to attack, but he effortlessly dismissed them and sent Yu flying with a gust of wind. Kimazuki rushed in, and they clashed swords with swift movements. Before he could strike a finishing blow, blades impaled the vampire, and Wasaki used his sword's power to bind and restrain him. However, before eliminating him, the vampire severed his own part and disappeared instantly. Prepared to attack again, Kimazuki suggested luring him into a trap. Teasing the vampire, he wondered if he could regenerate the missing part. When he stabbed the arm, it began to vanish, enraging the vampire, who swiftly advanced. Mitsuba unleashed flames, but he dispelled them, only to find Yuichi and Kimazuki standing before him. Their combined attack halted him, allowing Yu to deliver a powerful slash, bringing him to his knees with a deep wound. Seizing the opportunity, Endo moved in to finish him off, but he caught her sword, sacrificing himself in the process and getting obliterated before their eyes. With the vampire defeated, Mitsuba informed the teams they could defeat the other nobles if they continued working together. At the same time, Guren was engaged in battle with another noble vampire. After carving a gaping wound into the vampire's heart, Guren vanquished him with a single powerful slash. When his team arrived, Guren informed them that they must join the remaining forces immediately. However, at that moment, a wounded soldier appeared before them. With his last breath, he revealed that the other nobles had eliminated his squad and taken the survivors as new juice makers. Nato warned Guren that the vampires were trying to lead them into a trap. Guren acknowledged the information and decided that they would reunite with the other teams and proceed to eliminate Crowley. Later that day, Yu and the other soldiers waited for the remaining teams to arrive. When one new team appeared, they realized that the other teams may have been eliminated. The leader, Ahara, informed Narumi that they barely survived their battle, curious about how they returned unscathed from facing another high-ranking vampire. Narumi explained that Yu and his team had intervened, saving them from extermination. Shortly after, Guren arrived at the park and was pleased to learn that a few nobles were successfully slain. Recognizing that Ahara's team was too exhausted to continue in the war, he instructed them to remain at the park until a new squad arrived to take their place. Additionally, Guren informed them that several teams were eliminated, and their new mission was to rescue the survivors captured by the vampires. Later that day, Guren and the other team set out for a new destination with the intention of eliminating another noble vampire. Meanwhile, at the park, a new squad eventually arrived. Ahara, spotting them, was delighted at the prospect of finally switching places with the exhausted team. However, their joy was short-lived as they soon discovered that vampire aircraft had trailed them to the park. Desperate to save the squad, Ahara fired an arrow and destroyed one aircraft, but two vampires jumped out of the second, and more vampires surrounded them. Realizing their annihilation was imminent, Ahara attempted to shoot the vampires. Suddenly, Mika appeared behind her, catching her throat and incapacitating her instantly. With no means of escape, Ahara urged the squads to end themselves. They began chewing on candy and dropping like flies, but before Ahara could end herself, Mika searched her mouth and stole her sweet. He declared that he was willing to let her live if she would reveal where to find Yu. However, another vampire observed the scene and wondered if Mika intended to make Ahara his sushi. Mika dismissed the notion, stating that she was already dead. Upon discovering that a few nobles had been slain, the group considered warning Lord Crowley immediately. Yet, Owari held a knife to Mika's throat, threatening to end him if they made contact. However, she began to back away and expressed her concern that Yu, along with the squad, was heading for Lord Crowley's castle and might face elimination. In response, Mika smacked off the weapon and squeezed Owari's hand, causing her to scream in pain. He kicked and stamped on her, demanding information about the remaining squad's whereabouts. Owari eventually revealed that they were heading for a distant garden with the intention of attacking the noble lord of that district. The other vampires decided to head for the garden to inform the noble beforehand. As Mika prepared to leave, Owari requested him to put her out of her misery. However, he instructed her to do it herself. One of the vampires suggested carrying her along to show her to the nobles. In response, Owari drew her bow and prepared to attack them all. However, as she released the arrow, she missed her aim, and Mika swiftly slew her with a single slash of his sword. Disappointed by the outcome, the other vampires left. Mika expressed his desire to stay behind and visit Lord Crowley's castle with a few low-ranking vampires. Meanwhile, Guren and the squad had arrived on a rooftop, but upon spotting the hostages, Guren realized they were being lured into a trap. He emphasized that their priority was to stay alive until backup forces joined their squad for the next mission. They were meant to serve as a distraction. As the teams dispersed, Yuuichirou spotted Crowley at his window, presenting a chance to strike. He unleashed a beast at the window, causing an explosion and carving a large hole into the wall. However, Crowley emerged unscathed and effortlessly hurled the monster away. Realizing the challenges they faced in freeing the soldiers, Guren wondered if their plans would be successful. Shinya suggested abandoning the hostages and fleeing for their lives. However, Yu asserted that he would not leave until all the soldiers were freed. After a few minutes, the squad split into two teams, ready for their new mission. As they awaited the signal, an explosion shook the building in front of them. Simultaneously, Guren sliced one vampire and slashed another. Mito took down one with a powerful punch, and Yu vanquished two of them. However, as more vampires approached, Goshi released a smoke that created an illusion, conjuring 100 other soldiers with the vampires. Enchanted by this illusion, Guren and his team ran through, while Narumi began freeing the soldiers. Guren flew towards Crowley, aiming to distract him from the hostages. However, Crowley knocked back his sword, prompting Guren to hurl curse explosives that exploded in his face. Despite the explosion, Crowley caught Guren's hand, and Shinya appeared before him. Crowley threw Guren into Shinya, sending them crashing inside the building. With their commanders trapped, Yu suggested rescuing them, and the rest of the team agreed. Inside the building, while Guren and Shinya were trying to recover from the crash, Crowley appeared before them. He commended their bravery but promised to squash them like bugs. Guren began attacking him with relentless strikes, but Crowley easily read his movements. When Shinya tried blasting him, a lady with a whip smacked him, but Guren would not relent. Determined to annihilate him, flew high to slay him, but managed to push him off. Determined to defeat him, Guren summoned the power of his sword while Shinya fired at Crowley. However, Crowley effortlessly slashed both of their attacks and burned Shinya with flames. Fortunately, they managed to escape, and as they ran down a hall, Crowley pursued them. Shinya launched a few blasts, but Crowley swiftly slayed them and dodged the last. As they hurried down a passage, Crowley broke through the wall before them, striking Guren's sword. When Guren attempted to attack, the vampire impaled him, referring to him as his puppet. As he pulled out his sword, Crowley seized him, expressing his intent to keep Guren as his doll. Suddenly, Yu burst through the ground, aiming to confront Crowley. However, Crowley blocked his attack and attempted to finish him off. Fortunately, Kimazuki intervened, allowing Yuuichirou to fire arrows and Mitsuba to unleash a flame around him. When Yu tried to strike Crowley, the vampire put Guren in his way, causing Yu to stop. Undeterred, Yu summoned his flaming swords and launched them, but they were knocked away by the vampire ladies. As Yu charged forward, he managed to block a strike but was caught in a whip and immediately pulled up. When they attempted to end him, Shinoa protected him, but they were both thrown to the floor. Realizing the hopelessness of the situation, Shinoa suggested they run away. Yuuichirou launched arrows at the enemies, and Mitsuba cast a powerful flame, but the vampires instantly vanquished it. Desperate to save Guren, Yu tried challenging them, but Kimazuki restrained him. However, Crowley, seeking to provoke them, flung into the wall. When Yu attempted to rescue Guren once more, Shinya stopped him, insisting that they had to escape immediately. Despite Yu's persistence, Shinya restrained him, and they all started running away. The vampires tried to chase them, but a magical flame appeared before their eyes, trapping them inside an illusion. Crowley dodged kunai attacks, smacked off Goshi, and effortlessly evaded Mito's onslaught before grabbing her leg and flinging her into. Realizing their hopelessness, Guren told his team to abandon him. But Yuri expressed his desire to stay by Guren's side forever. As Crowley began kicking Guren, he screamed for the team to run away, convinced he could never be rescued. However, Goshi decided to try a final trick. As he struck the ground, lava began pouring in. Having seen enough, Crowley unleashed a mighty slash that destroyed the walls and broke the illusion. As the team arrived at an abandoned site, Shinya threw Yu to the floor, angered by his reckless behavior at the castle. Yu, however, didn't know when to stop and began demanding that they rescue Guren immediately. Shinoa told him that they had to continue with their mission as it was their only hope of winning the war. At that moment, Guren's team arrived, and Shinya informed them that they must rejoin the other squads within a few hours and continue to their next mission. Yu, however, insisted that his only mission was to rescue Guren. Broken and feeling betrayed, he decided to tell them his story. After escaping from the vampire world, Guren had found him and taken care of him like family. Guren had considered him special and wanted him to channel his anger into slaying vampires. Yu revealed to the squad that he could never abandon Guren. Taking out his pills, Shinoa soon realized what he intended to do. When she tried to snatch them, Yu kept them out of her reach and swallowed too. Shinoa warned him that the pills would end him, and Mitsuba tried to force him to vomit, but Yu refused, determined to become powerful. Before long, Yu began to cough up tomato sauce, prompting Shinya to command the teams to back away. When the boys attempted to restrain him, he tossed them aside. As Yu started to scream, he eventually passed out on the floor. Meanwhile, Mika and a few vampires arrived at Crowley's castle after sensing a human presence. Mika impaled the vampire before him, determined to keep Yu's whereabouts hidden from the others. When the remaining vampires surrounded him, Mika slayed one and destroyed the others, causing the ground to erupt around him. Inside the spirit world, Yu began to ask Asuramaru for her powers, expressing his need to save Guren and his willingness to trade his soul for the devil. However, Asuramaru warned him that the pills were already too powerful, and her additional powers could make him explode. Unperturbed, Yu continued to beg for her powers. Frustrated, Asuramaru finally told him that he was already dead and had no more use for her powers. When Yu wondered if he was in the afterlife, she clarified that he was still in his spirit world, and the angels were determined to keep him alive. Hearing a sound, Yu looked back and saw a fallen trumpet. Desperate for power, he began to crawl towards it, but Asuramaru stopped him, warning that the trumpet was evil and could take control of his mind. Despite her caution, Yu was determined to attain power, and as he tried to touch the trumpet, she caught his hand and impaled his heart for being too stubborn. Nevertheless, Yu remained determined and screamed at her to give him her powers, prompting her to offer him special abilities for a few minutes with the condition that she would later take possession of his body. In the same time, Yu woke up in the real world, spotting his friends all around him. He declared his intention to save Guren and flew out the window, rushing through the streets before jumping into the castle. Breaking through a window, he darted towards Guren, but Crowley stopped him in his tracks, questioning how he became powerful again. Yu told Crowley that he had returned to eliminate him and began a raging onslaught. Jumping away, he summoned his flaming swords to even the battle. Crowley drew power from his weapon and cast the wind at Yu, but he blocked and knocked Crowley away before punching him into the wall. However, Yu rushed again, and Crowley smacked his sword away. Guren appeared before Crowley could finish him, urging Yu to run away, but Yu seemed relentless, wondering why he couldn't defeat Crowley. After receiving Asuramaru's power, Crowley informed Yu that humans were merely juice makers for the vampires, and the vampires would continue to be the kings of the world. Angered by Crowley's words, Yu flew at him and began another onslaught, seemingly out of control. However, Crowley kicked him aside, and the vampire ladies restrained Guren. Guren screamed for Yu to run away, but Yu, seemingly with a death wish, was determined to fight until the end. As Yu attacked Crowley once more, he punched him away. Realizing his hopelessness, Yu summoned Asuramaru for more powers, and mystical drawings stretched across his body. A horn appeared on his head, but a coffin materialized before his eyes, revealing two glowing eyes inside. Kimazuki jumped into the hall, recognizing that Yu was turning into a demon. Rushing towards him, Kimazuki grabbed him and threw him towards the coffin, where a monster swallowed him. In that instant, a hole opened in the ground, and two monsters emerged to distract them. With Yu rescued once more, the team started running off to their next destination. In the city, Mika learned that the vampire army was heading towards Lord Crowley's castle. He wondered if he'd ever see Yu again. Just then, he spotted the squad running towards him, with Yu in their midst. When Shinya saw Mika, he ordered his squad to eliminate him before other vampires discovered their location. Mika approached them, charging power into his sword. He dashed forward, slashing his sword. Naomi shielded the blast, but Mika swiftly moved through the soldiers, flying through the air, and cutting through the forces like a determined man on a mission. Soon, he found himself in thick smoke, and Goshi cast an illusion spell, causing him to seemingly melt. However, Mika managed to push through. Jumping into the air, Yuri attempted to stop him, but he shattered her sword and was pierced with kunai before being kicked to the ground. As the soldiers rushed to finish him, he saw Yu and was revived. Slaying one group, he began a relentless onslaught, like a demon from hell. Weakening and feeling dizzy, they tried to cut him, but he persisted, determined to reach the other side. Mitsuba appeared before him, but he struck her blade and pushed her aside. Shinoa blocked his sword, telling him they were Yu's friends, but he shoved her away. Locking hands with Kim Izuki, he rammed into his head, leaving Kim Izuki unconscious. Trying to carry Yu, Yoichi stopped him, expressing their care for him like family. Mika pushed him away. Suddenly, Shinya stabbed him from behind, ready to end him. However, a monster knocked Shinya aside from Shinoa's side. Shinoa told Mika to carry Yu to a safe spot. The soldiers prepared to attack, but Shinoa stopped them with her flame, while Mitsuba unleashed her own. Shinoa instructed Mika to run away and carved a path, allowing Mika to dart off with Yu. However, a soldier knocked her down and tried to end her, but Narumi protected her. Amidst the squad's confusion, they saw new vampires coming their way. When the vampires landed, they began attacking and causing chaos. Shinoa saved Narumi from danger, but Endo was killed by a vampire. Kageyama sought revenge but was also slain by another vampire. Narumi, angered and wanting to join the fight, was stopped by Shinya, who warned that they wouldn't survive. Meanwhile, more vampires descended from aircraft. Shinya yelled at the squad to head to the nearest safe place. While blocking and defeating a vampire, they made their escape. However, Narumi was scared seeing his friends hurt. Shinya punched him to bring him back to his senses, and they ran away together. Meanwhile, Mika was stumbling away, feeling thirsty and drained, losing tomato sauce as he collapsed from exhaustion. He realized his wounds weren't healing, so he checked for some spare juice but found none left. When he tried waking Yu, he noticed a few children hiding in the old mall in front of him. Thirsty and desperate, he forced his way inside, catching a boy by the throat and taking him down. However, when he attempted to take a chunk, the boy called him a monster, snapping Mika back to his senses. Seizing the opportunity, the frightened boy ran off. After a moment, Mika began pulling Yu into the mall. With the safe, he decided to hide away. Meanwhile, in Yu's spirit world, Asurumaru informed him that he had been unconscious for several hours. Yu, concerned for his friends, especially wondering if he managed to rescue Guren, was told by Asurumaru that she could only see through his eyes and couldn't guarantee their safety. Yu then woke up in the real world and saw Mika in the darkness. Drawing his sword, he cautiously approached. However, Mika jumped towards him, smacking his sword and taking him down, asking for a taste of his juice. Realizing Mika was in pain, Yu offered himself up. But Mika swiftly backed away, coughing up sauce. Yu tried to help, but Mika told him to stay away because he was still thirsty. However, Yu expressed his willingness to share, drawing Mika close and expressing a desire to end his pain. Mika revealed his fear that taking the juice would turn him into a monster, as it would make him a vampire forever, halting his aging. Despite Yu's attempts to persuade him, Mika hesitated, afraid of the consequences. Yu, not wanting to lose Mika, offered him his juice, revealing a cut on his arm, with his juice dripping to the floor. Unable to resist, Mika flashed to Yu and began to suck his juice. When he finished, his eyes turned red, completing his transition into an immortal vampire.